This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone. Tonight's share is sponsored by a good friend, David K, as a Suda Saida for the miracle that Hashem performed for him. May he have Simchas Anachas Ad B'Yaskal Tzadak. Okay, welcome back everyone. I want to speak a little bit about the koyach of the blessing that is latent in the Zman of Sefiras HaOmer, and speak about the blessing on Sefiras HaOmer itself. We all know, like before any mitzvah, before we're mekayim the mitzvah of Sefiras HaOmer, we make a bracha. The same way we make a bracha before we're mekayim almost any mitzvah. Before you put on tefillin, you make a bracha. Before you put on tzitzis, you make a bracha. Before you sit in the sukkah, before you eat matzah. Whenever you do a mitzvah, you make a bracha. And likewise, Sefiras HaOmer, before you count, HaYom Yom, you know the joke. There's a couple, Bali Tshuva, so the husband asked the wife, what's for supper? So she was very firm. She said, last night we had chicken. But we know that when it comes to Sefiras HaOmer, we make a bracha like by any bracha, like by any mitzvah. Anyway, the Rambam comes, and the Rambam, who interestingly brings Hilchos Sefiras HaOmer not in Zmanim, not when it comes to Hilchos Shavuos or Hilchos Pesach. The Rambam brings Hilchos Sefiras HaOmer and Hilchos Tamidin u'Musafin. The Rambam says in Perek Zayin Halacha Chafei, "V'tzarich levarach b'chol laila, baruch ato Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al Sefiras HaOmer." Which already is interesting. Well, the Rambam has to tell you what the bracha on Sefira is. Does the Rambam say by every mitzvah what the language, by sukkah, the Rambam tells you what bracha to make on the sukkah, by tefillin, the Rambam. So it's interesting that the Rambam articulates what the nusach habracha is. And then he says, mana, if you counted, v'loi birech, and you didn't make the bracha, yatsa, you're yaitse. Which is a pella, why the Rambam needs to say that. Of course you're yaitse. A bracha is not ma'akev the mitzvah. Person puts on tefillin, he doesn't make a bracha, you'd say 1,000%. There's nothing deficient in the kiyam mitzvah. Somebody sits in the sukkah and they don't make a bracha. They forgot to make a bracha, but there's nothing deficient in the kiyam mitzvah. The Rambam, not every time the Rambam talks about the performance of a mitzvah, does the Rambam have to say, by the way, if you fulfill the mitzvah and you didn't make a bracha, you're mekayim the mitzvah. Why by Sefira does the Rambam say, if you counted and you didn't make a bracha, you're yotzei? Why does the Rambam need to say that? And then the Rambam says further, Ve'ena chayzer mavarech, meaning if you davened early, let's say you davened Maariv right after Shkia. So let's say you counted before the Tzeis HaKechavim, for those who do that. Then now you want to count Bizmano, you want to count after Tzeis. You don't make a bracha. Why? Because you're a yotzei. No kidding, you're a yotzei. Why does the Rambam have to say you don't make a bracha? Meaning this whole statement of the Rambam is superfluous. Why would the Rambam have to say if you counted and you didn't make a bracha, you're yotzei? Of course you're yotzei. And why would the Rambam have to say, and if you count without a bracha, you don't need to count again with a bracha? Of course not, you're yotzei the mitzvah. For example, if somebody ate matzah the first night of Pesach, and he forgot to make a bracha, you don't eat again with a bracha, you're already yotzei the mitzvah. There's nothing you could do. You can't make a bracha. So why is the Rambam articulating this? It goes without saying. This is the question of Hagoin Rav Moshe Shapiro in the Sefer Afikei Mayim. Rav Moshe Shapiro, one of the great Bali Machshava of this last generation. And he says very simply that the reason why the Rambam articulates this is because there is a dissenting view. There is actually a dissenting view that seems to hold that if somebody counted without a bracha, you could count again with a bracha, which is a pella atzuma, but there is such a view, and that's the view of the Talmud Muvak of Rashi, the Machshava Vitri. The Machshava Vitri holds that if you counted without a bracha, you could count again with a bracha, which is a pella. I was already yotzei the mitzvah. How could I say that tzivanu? I'm not mitzvah. I already did the mitzvah. The Machshava Vitri says you could, and that's why the Machshava Vitri paskins. Somebody who davens mi ba'od yom, if you daven, let's say Maariv before the Tzeis HaKechavim, you count without a bracha, mimanav shach, and you make some kind of stipulation, which we don't really do, but the Machshava Vitri says you could do it. He says like this: if I remember at night to count, I'll count again and I'll make a bracha. And it won't be a bracha v'atah because I didn't make a bracha the first time. If I don't remember to count, at least I counted. So the Machshava Vitri says if you daven early, you count without a bracha, and then after the zman, you count with a bracha. And that Vudraham brings, but the Rambam says this is not correct. That the Rambam paskins, if you counted without a bracha, it sounds like even if you counted without a bracha before the Zman, you're Yotzei and you don't make a bracha again. So therefore, says Moshe Shapiro, we understand why the Rambam needs to articulate. If somebody counted and didn't make a bracha, you're Yotzei, and you don't make a bracha again, because the Machshava argues, there are Rishonim that argue, there are Rishonim that hold, that if you count without a bracha, count again with a bracha. And therefore the Rambam says, no, that's not my viewpoint. My viewpoint is, if you count without a bracha, you count again, there's no reason to count again.
The whole thing is Midrabanan, so what the whole thing?
The Rabbanan are also important. Right? The rabbis are also important.
What's his basis?
Why are the rabbis important?
No, what's the Rambam's basis that you don't have to...
Well, the Rambam seems to be the more clear pshat, because we all know that a bracha is not part of the fulfillment of the mitzvah. So if I fulfill the mitzvah, why would you do it again with a bracha? I already was makayim the mitzvah. The chiddush is the Machshava.
But how does he know that you fulfilled it without saying the bracha?
Because we know it's a well-known rule in Shas that brachos are not ma'akev. You know, let's say a woman lit the candles Friday night. She didn't make a bracha. She's yotzei. So you put on tefillin, didn't make a bracha. You're yotzei. Bracha is not a bracha is not needed for the fulfillment of the mitzvah. So the Rambam is the more simple pshat. If you counted without a bracha, you're yotzei. You don't have to do it again with a bracha. But what we would like to explain is what's the pshat in the Machshava. Why would the Machshava say if you count without a bracha, you could count again with a bracha? I already was yotzei the mitzvah. So now I want to bring to your attention another interesting shita in the midst of Sefiras HaOmer, which would also lend to the following idea. What we're learning is that maybe there's a notion that when it comes to Sefiras HaOmer, the bracha is not merely a birchas ha-mitzvah. Somehow part of the kiyam ha-mitzvah is the bracha. Maybe what we're learning is that even though when it comes to every other mitzvah, the bracha is just a preparation for the mitzvah, the bracha of Sira is part of the mitzvah. Let's give another illustration of this. The Magen Avram brings down a shita that when you count Sira, you say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asher Kiddushanu B'Mitzvos V'Tzivanu Al Sefiras HaOmer Shehayoim Yoim Shloisha Yomim L'Omer. Not Hayoim Shloisha Yomim L'Omer. Shehayoim Shloisha Yomim L'Omer. And the Magen Avram says, don't say that, because if you say that, that implies that I'm commanded to count the HaOmer because tonight is the third, as if somehow the bracha and the fulfillment of the mitzvah are connected. And the Magen Avram says, don't say that. Don't say Shehayoim Yom. Say you make a bracha and then you fulfill the mitzvah, but don't connect the bracha to the fulfillment of the mitzvah. Likewise, the Taz says, don't say Shehayoim. But if the Magen Avram and the Taz say, don't say Shehayoim, obviously there's a legitimate position to say it. Otherwise, there's no need to say not to say it. But comes the Chok Yaakov. The Chok Yaakov was Rabbi Yaakov Reisher. Rabbi Yaakov Reisher wrote the Ion Yaakov on the Ein Yaakov. He wrote the Torah Sashlamim on Hilchos Nida. He wrote Shaus Tshuvas Shvus Yaakov. And on Hilchos Pesach, he wrote the Chok Yaakov. And he says, even though the consensus of the Achronim is not to say Shehayoim, but the truth is, if somebody says Shehayoim, they're not off. They're not making a mistake. You have what to rely on. The Rokeach, the Tanya, not to be confused with the Tanya. The Tanya, nothing to do with the Baal HaTanya. One of the Rishonim, there's a Sefer, I believe it's a summary of the Shiboilei Haleket. It's called the Sefer HaTanya, written by one of the Italian Rishonim from the Anav family. There's a tradition that Titus exiled from Yerushalayim 4 prestigious families. One of them was the Anav family, from which the Shiboilei Haleket comes. Also, the Sefer Tanya of the Rishon came from this family. They all say you could say Shehayoim.
Well, how did this Shehayoim get into the Torah?
And why would you say Shehayoim? The pshat is, blessed are you Hashem, that you sanctified us, and you commanded us to count the HaOmer because tonight is the third night of the HaOmer. Somehow, again, this Gersa, this approach is saying that the bracha is incorporated into the fulfillment of the mitzvah. So the question is, what is the connection between the bracha and the Kiyam HaMitzvah. By the way, the Ber Heitev seems to paskin that this approach to the Chayk Yaakov is a legitimate approach, and he brings it down la halacha that if somebody wants to say Shehayom, you're not making a mistake. It's not a crazy thing to do. So let's discuss the following. The Gemara Megillah on Lamed Aleph Amud Beis. So that means next week's blad in the Daf HaShavua, Lamed Aleph Amud Beis. Next Monday night, we're going to learn Brisa from Shimon ben Elazar. Ezra was the Navi Malachi, the last of the Nevi'im. He enacted takana that certain Kriyas HaTorahs have to be laned at certain times. So he enacted that we know there are two teichachas, right? Azriel, where are the two teichachas? Okay, good. That these two teichachas have to be read at two specific strategic locations. B'chukaisai, we lane it before Shavuos, and Kisavai, we have to lane before Rosh Hashanah. This was the takana of Ezra, and this is what we do. 2 weeks before Shavuos, meaning before Shavuos we lane Bamidbar, but the week before that we lane B'chukaisai, and 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah we lane Kisavai. Taisus asks, why don't we do it immediately before? Taisus says, we don't want to get the klalos too close to Rosh Hashanah, so we give a little bit of a buffer zone, but it always has to, B'chukaisai has to go before Shavuos, and Kisavai has to go before Rosh Hashanah. So the Gemara asks, Bishlama, Kisavai goes before Rosh Hashanah. There's a rule. Tichle Shana v'kalaisah. We want the year to end with its klalais. You know, on all the calendars it says, Tichle Shana v'kalaisah. Let the year end with its klalais. But why do you have to lane b'chukaisai before Shavuos? Shavuos is not a new year. So the Gemara says, no, Shavuos is a new year. Like the Mishnah says, Ba'atzares, al peiroi so'ilan. So Shavuos is the new year for fruits. By the way, the Shlach Kadosh says it's a remez to Chidushei Torah. That's a new year for Chidushei Torah. So since Shavuos is a new year, we need to get the Teichacha in before the new year. So it's very interesting that we specifically have to get in which Teichacha? The Teichacha of B'chukaisai. Somehow we can't have a Shavuos and we can't conclude Sefira until we get out the Teichacha B'chukaisai. You know, why is this so critical? To get out the Teichacha B'chukaisai before Shavuos. Okay, Rabbi Say, here it is. The Gemara you've all been waiting for.
Are they the same word?
No. In fact, the Teichacha in Kisavai has double the number of klalos that the Teichacha in B'chukaisai has. Says the Gemara, Yevama Samach Beis and Beis. This is the seminal Gemara for this time of the year. Rabbi Akiva had 12,000 pairs of Talmidim. They occupied the length and breadth of Eretz Yisrael from Gavas until Antiparas, and they all died at one time because they didn't treat each other nicely, and the world was desolate until Rabbi Akiva went to the sages in the south, and they were, Rabbi Say, who were they? You remember the mnemonic? Maisha, Mem Yud Yud Shin Aleph, right? Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda, Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. By the way, the Talmidei Hagra have a different gersa. Talmidei Hagra say that Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua was not the fifth Talmud. The fifth Talmud was Rav Nechemiah. And the remez is, V'nishkafa al pnei hayeh Shimon. The word Yeshimon is Rashi Tevois, Yehuda, Shimon, Yossi, Meir, Nechemiah. That's the remez of Rabbi Menachem Mendel Mishkolav. Okay, but be it as it may, Rabbi Akiva taught these 5 Talmidim, and they restored the Torah, and they all died between Pesach and Shavuos. Why? Why did they die now? Now is the healthiest time of the year. You know, the Gemara says in Shabbos, all drinks that you drink between Pesach and Shavuos are healthy. The Gemara says water is very healthy during this time of the year. It becomes an elixir of life. In fact, the Chasam Sofer brings that the Chodesh Iyar is Rosh Tevois, Ani Hashem Reifecha. It's a very healthy time. So why are they dying this time? It's such a healthy time. Why would they die now? How many students did Rabbi Akiva have? 24,000 students. Hafla v'fela, you look throughout Tanakh, and there's another instance where the number 24,000 appears, and another instance where 24,000 great people died, and that is at the very end of Parshas Balak. It says, Vayiyu hamesim b'ma gefa. How many from Shevet Shimon died? Arba'a v'yasrim, all of 24,000. Okay, so what are you going to do with that? So last year, by Reb Morty Jacob's bonfire, we spoke out from the Megala Amukos and from the Ramami Pano that they draw. Were you there? You were there? Good. Just check. What? You had a good time? So they draw a connection, that there is a connection between the 24,000 descendants of Shimon, from Shevet Shimon, led by who? Led by Zimri ben Salu, otherwise known as, who knows what Zimri's name was? Shlumiel ben Surishadai. And these 24,000 descendants of Shimon, they died b'Magefa, and the Arizal's Megala, and the Megala Mukos is Megala, and Ramami Pano's Megala, that somehow the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva were the tikkun of the 24,000 descendants of Shimon who died b'Magefa, and for whatever reason they were not able to be Masake in the Avera of the Bnei Shimon, and they too died. Which gives us a completely different insight into what happened. We tend to think they died because Shalai Nohagu Kavod Zebazeh, which is, one would think that it's pretty severe because they were not Noye Kavod Zelazeh. They died so horribly. There's no Einish of Misa, Mibnei Shalai Nohagu Kavod Zebazeh. But now it's being revealed to us that they were brought back in this world to correct the Avera of the Bnei Shimon who committed Znus. For if they were not successful in being Masakin, so they too succumbed to the original Magefa that hit the Bnei Shimon. So it could be they didn't die because Shalai Noagu. They were given a chance to be Masakin. They blew the chance from Bnei Shalai Noagu. And Mamela, they also had that original Magefa. But the question is, what's the connection between the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva and the 24,000 descendants of Shimon? Like, what does one have to do with the other? The Rabbi Akiva didn't come from Shevet Shimon. How were these students in any way connected to the 24,000 Yidden who succumbed to the Magef in the times of Shimon and Pinchas and Zimri and Cosby? Okay, so tonight's Mythbuster. Ready, Yossi? Tonight's Mythbuster is as follows. Everybody's going to say it, right? Bilam tried to curse Klal Yisrael, but he was what? He blessed them, right? That's what everybody learned in yeshiva. Nice try. That never happened. No. Ultimately, he cursed Klal Yisrael. What? But the pasuk says in Devarim that Hashem was ma'apich the klala to a bracha. So I don't know why this is one of the most misrepresented teachings. The Gemara Beferish says not like that. So let's read what the Gemara says. Exactly. The Gemara says, and the Gemara almost. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says Kuf Hey Amud Beis. The Gemara says from the bracha that Bilam blessed, because if you read the Parsha, he didn't say one word of klala. The whole Parsha is blessing. The whole Parsha is blessing. So the Gemara says from the blessing that Bilam gave Klal Yisrael, we learn what he wanted to curse us. He wanted that we shouldn't have Bate Knesses and Bate Midrashos. So Hashem changed it to Matoy Vo'elach Yaakov. The Gemara says, he wanted that Hashem should not be Shoyra Shechina and Klal Yisrael. So he said, Mishkan Yisach Yisrael. He didn't want us to have Malchus. Instead he said, Kinachalam Nitayu. He didn't want us to have olives and vineyards. He said, no, Kaganos Alinar. He didn't want us to smell good. He said, no, like, Ayholim Nata Hashem. He didn't want us to have tall kings. He said, no, ka'arazim alei. He didn't want us to have continuity of malchus. He said, Yizal mayim midaya. He didn't want our malchus to rule over the goyim. He said, no, v'zar b'mayim rabim. And so on and so forth and so forth. Says the Gemara, every bracha that Bilam gave Klal Yisrael was transformed into a klala. He cursed Klal Yisrael. And it was Niskayim. Except for one. Says, what are you talking about? I thought the pasuk says Hashem was mahapich the bracha to klala, the klala to bracha. Exactly, he was mahapich one klala to a bracha, not klalois lebrachas, klala lebracha. But every other bracha was turned into a klala. The Ferish Gemara, the whole story that everybody thinks Bilam blessed Klal Yisrael. He didn't bless Klal Yisrael. He cursed Klal Yisrael. Every blessing was nishapich leklala except for one. Says the Gemara, Amar of Abba Bar Kahana, kulam chazru leklala. Except for Batei Knesiyos, like the pasuk says, Vayapach Hashem lekecha lechas haklala. Klala v'loi klalais. Only one klala was turned to bracha. Everything else was ultimately transformed into a klala. So now the question is, how was Bilam successful in Layalenu cursing Klal Yisrael? What was his tactic? So we know he was being very unsuccessful in cursing us until he had an Einfal. What was the Einfal? He said, Elokeim shel elu soinei zima. God hates lewd behavior. If I get Klal Yisrael to be mezaneh, then I'll be successful in cursing. Now it's very interesting. With what nation did Bilam try to have us be mezaneh and have us be mezaneh? Moav. Why Moav? Why not North Koreans? Why not Japanese? Why Moav? Why Moav? So here's the side. Now we're going to understand the secret of the plan of Bilam, and we're going to understand the secret of Sefira. This is a side in Sefira, which is never tapped into, and it's mamish a side nifla. Moav, the Arizal says, what's the numerical value of Moav? Mem is 40, Vav is 6, Aleph is 1, Vez is 2. The gematria of Moav is 49. Likewise, Rabbeinu Bechaye writes, Moav is 49. In fact, this is used because we know Moshe Rabbeinu, even though the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, Moshe Rabbeinu was given 49 gateways of wisdom. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says, Shenemar, Vatechasreu, Chamishim Shari Bino Nivru Va'olam, V'kulam Nitnu LaMoshe Chaser Bina Nivru Ba'olam, V'kulam Nitnu LaMoshe Chaser Achas, Shenemar, Vatechasreu, Me'at Me'alokim. But says the Shla HaKadosh, in the name of that Ri, on Yom Achroin, Vayal Moshe me'arvois Moav. Moshe went up from the plains of Moav, it's 49. El Har Nunbai. He went up to Har Navai. He went up to the 50th level. So Moav is very often used to denote the number 49. Moav is Avi Avois Klala. Moav is the root of all Klala in the world. So Bilam, now, how much Klala is there? Everything in this world, in the physical world or in the spiritual world, is measured in basically numbers of 49. And the reason for that is because the physical world is in the context of 7. 7 runs the gamut of the expansiveness of the physical world, the 7 days of the week. But the full gamut of what's contained in the context of this world is 7 to 7 times 7, 49. And the way the Rebbeinu Shem created the world is Zel U'ma Zeh Asalekim. Whatever there is for evil, there is for good. Whatever there is for good, there is for evil. Right? Everything has to be balanced out. So there are 49 koichos of Toma, and there are 49 koichos of Ra. Moav is Avi Avois HaKlala. Moav is the epitome of Klala. So Bilam says, if I want to make my curses successful, the best way to do that is not to get Klal Yisrael to be mezaneh with North Koreans, but to have them be mezaneh with the Avi Avois HaKlala, and that is Moav Gematria 49. Why is Moav the Avi Avois HaKlala? It's very interesting. Where does Moav come from? A very interesting fellow. Your Zayda. Light. What does light mean? What's the lashon of light? The Shla HaKadosh writes, how do you say curse in Aramaic? Layit ole abaye. It's a layit. Light means klala. Light was the epitome of klala. And therefore he bore Moav 49, which is the root of klala, the root of curse, of aror. That's the lashon of light. Light is milashon layit. Look at number 21. I never knew this. The Shla HaKadosh in Parsha Lech Lecha. It's a big side. He says, light lashon latusa. A lashon of a curse. Now, isn't that strange? Here you have a nice man by the name of David. He's Mashiach. And we say, Mashiach, who's the Zayda? Zayda? Moav. Where did he come from? Can't really talk about it. And who is his Zayda? Light. I mean, he can't have better yichus. Why can't he come from a nice shalsheles of Torah, of tzaddikim? Why Moav? Why light? The answer is like this. The Navi Tzefanya describes the job description of Mashiach. The Navi Tzefanya says in number 22, Paragimel and Pasuk Tes. By the way, Tzefanya was a Navi. Tzefanya is a sefer on the Trei Asar. The Trei Asar is one of the books of the Torah. You know, when God came down and He gave the Torah to Moses, He gave us 24 books called Tanakh. In the Nevi'im, there's something called Trei Asar. One of the Trei Asar is Tzefanya. Tzefanya says that the job of Mashiach is ki oz epoich el amim safa v'rura. Mashiach will transform the nations. Which means like this. Mashiach's job is to take the highest level corruption and turn it around. Mashiach is not going to come and preach to the choir. The job of Mashiach is to mahapech. By the way, the Rambam writes, in the censored in the uncensored Rambam. We don't have it in the regular Rambams. In the Shapsi Franco Rambam, they put it back in. The Rambam writes that the reason why God brought Christianity to the world is because this way, the nations of the world know there's something called Messiah. They know there's something called divine revelation. They just have a distorted view of it. And then the Mashiach could come along and flip it around. That what? Mashiach didn't come, but it's here now. That God did not change his mind. It's still, he still has chosen Klal Yisrael. But the Rambam's bothered. Why can't Mashiach come? And why do we need false religions in the world? Why can't we just have a true religion and not everybody believes it? And then Mashiach will come and teach it. Because that's not the job description of Mashiach. Mashiach has to be mahapech people's mindset. The Rebbeinu Shalom intentionally created false religions so that Mashiach will come and flip it. Meaning, in other words, they have certain distorted viewpoints of the truth. And Mashiach will come and flip it around. That's what it says in the original uncensored edition of the Rambam Malachim. Okay, so be it as it may, since Mashiach will bring bracha to the world, Mashiach has to come from light, which is klala, mayav, which is klala. By the way, this also I was never familiar with. I saw a shla, an incredible shla. You know, Avram and light, it's very interesting. The first time you meet a Jew, Avram Avinu, in the 3 psukim later, he's taking this guy light with him. Like, there's no such thing as a Yid, right? Avram Avinu, the Ramban says, was the first Jew. Vayam Hashem Avram lech lecha, and within 2 psukim, he's taking this guy light with him. Who's light? Why is light brought in? Like, within seconds of being introduced to Avram Avinu, light. Because if you have a Klal Yisrael, you need the potential for Mashiach. Light already comes to the scene, already from the first second, mitchilasai. So what does light do? Light, they go to Eretz Yisrael. Hashem comes to Avram, go to Eretz Yisrael. So they go to Eretz Yisrael. And Avram Avinu is muzzling his animals. And Light's not muzzling his animals. Because Light's a smart guy. Light knows this land will eventually belong to us. So Avram says to Light the following word. Hipared na me'alai. Separate from me. Im hasmoil ve'emina ve'im hayamin v'asmila. You go left, I go right. You go right, I go left. What word does Avram use? Hipared, separate. Interesting. We don't encounter that word again until Sefiras, where Rus tells Naomi, Ki hamaves yafrid beini uveinech. Only death will separate us. Says the Heilige Shla HaKadosh. Avram was telling Light, what are you getting so carried away with Eretz Yisrael? This doesn't belong to you yet. Wait until your day comes when Mashiach ben David will come from you. Started out in Rus. The moment that Rus tells Nami, Ki hamaves yafrid beini uveinech, that's when you'll be Zoichet Eretz Yisrael. Wait until the next period. Now, this period, you don't deserve Eretz Yisrael yet. What Avram was signaling to Light is right now Eretz Yisrael doesn't belong. Just hold your horses. Wait until Rus tells Nami, Ki hamaves yafrid beini uveinech. Unbelievable. The Avram Avinu used that word, hipared na, as a signal. Light, wait until the next period. So, all klal in the world was rooted in light, came forth from Mayav, 49 powers of klala emanating from Mayav. Bilam got the Bnei Shimon to be mezana with Mayav, and now the klala is chal. Says Moshe Shapiro, this would explain a very interesting Rashi in the Toichachan Kisavai. Anybody know in the Torah, as an introduction to the Torah and Kisavai, we have Oror Shemakarei Vasasar, Oror Shalayakim Mitzvah Torah Zois. How many Arurim? How many curses? How many curses? 49. No. How many Arurim? 13. Closer. 11. 11 curses. Says Rashi, Keneged the 11 Shvatim, right? Obviously, the 11 curses Keneged the 11 Shvatim. You're good with that? What? There are 12 Shvatim. So Rashi says, Shimon doesn't need an Oror. Why doesn't Shimon need an Oror? Says Moshe Shapiro, because Shimon already was Mazana with the Benois Mayav. Mayav is the epitome of Oror. Shimon already had an Oror. So we didn't need an Oror for Shimon. Okay. So somehow by being Mazana with the Benois Mayav, they were affected by the klala of Bilam. All klala came from being connected to Mayav. But the truth is, in order for Mashiach to come, Mashiach needs to destroy Mayav. Because as we said, Mashiach is the Makar of Bracha. He has to be Mahapech, Mashiach who descended from light and from Mayav. He has to destroy Mayav. By the way, And we spoke about this last year, Lag BaOmer, but we're just going to touch on it now very briefly. We know that in this same Tekufa that Rabbi Akiva's 24,000 students died, let's just speak out. We're now in the Zman of Avelos. Why? Because 24,000 students died. I don't understand. Today was the death of Yeshua ben Nun. We don't have Avelos. Every day is another yard side of a big tzaddik. Yeshua ben Nun was greater than any of Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim. Why don't we have Avelos for him?
There's no Talmidim.
Because only what?
The Rebbe's we celebrate. When the Talmidim we cry.
Okay, it's a Hasidic Shazach, right? So, there's a rule, we only have Avelos for Churban Beis HaMikdash. Why do we have Avelos for the death of the Talmid and Rabbi Akiva? We have Avelos for Nadav Avihu. A lot of Yidden have died throughout the ages. We don't have Avelos. You have Avelos if you lose a close relative. But when Adam or Tzaddik dies, there's no Avelos. Why Dafka the Talmid and Rabbi Akiva? Because of the numbers, just because of the numbers? So Moshe Shapiro says like this.
More than one.
There's something else that happened during that time. Rabbi Akiva, besides being the Rebbe of Klal Yisrael, what did he do on the side? He carried suitcases. He was a schlepper. Whose suitcases did he carry? He carried the suitcases of Bar Kochva. Rabbi Akiva paskined that Bar Kochva was Mashiach. He carried Bar Kochva's. Rabbi Akiva, the Yushalmi says in number 28, Tani Shimon ben Yochai, Akiva, Rabbi, my Rabbi, Haya Daresh, he darshan, look at number 27. There's a nevuah, I see Mashiach, but not now. I gaze at him, but he's not close. A star will emanate from Yaakov. Rabbi Akiva said, who's the star that emanates from Yaakov? Bar Kochva. And Rabbi Akiva paskin Bar Kochva's Mashiach. And there's a man by the name of Yochanan ben Toirasa, who, by the way, if you look in the humble book, Maggid Harakiah, there's a chapter on Yochanan ben Toirasa was the Gilgal of Achashverosh. Yochanan ben Toirasa told Rabbi Akiva that you're making a mistake, grass will grow in your mouth before this guy's Mashiach. That's the lashon the Yushalmi uses. But Rabbi Akiva paskin Bar Kochva was Mashiach. So the kasha is, how could Rabbi Akiva have made a mistake? One thing, throughout history, there are many false messiahs. There have been already 20 false messiahs in our history. But Rabbi Akiva, halacha Rabbi Akiva. The answer is, halacha Rabbi Akiva, Bar Kochva was Mashiach. The only thing was, because his students were not Noy Kavod Zelazeh, Bar Kochva died. So we weren't Zoicha to Mashiach. So what Beis HaMikdash wasn't built? The third. So the same way we have 3 weeks because the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, we have 49 days because the third Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. But even it wasn't built. Exactly. That's like a Churban, Moshe Shapiro says. The Yemei Sefira is Yemei Churban Beis HaMikdash. Why? Because we destroyed Bar Kochva. Rabbi Akiva wasn't mistaken about Bar Kochva. He got it right. The 24,000 student, now listen carefully. The 24,000 students came back to this world to overcome the klala of Moav. When Rabbi Akiva darshan the pasuk Darach Kochav Miyakov, the pasuk continues. One last thing Mashiach needs to do to confirm that he's Mashiach. Umachatz pasei Moav. He has to wipe out the governors of Moav. So in order for someone really to be Mashiach, you need to overcome 49. These students were given the opportunity to be Misakin. How they were given this opportunity, we don't exactly know. How they could have been Misakin, that's Lamala Me Hasogasenu. Why? Because they were not Noi Kavod Zelazeh, they failed, that's also above and beyond our comprehension. But one thing we know, that they were given that opportunity. These 24,000 sons of Rabbi Akiva were the tikkun of the Bnei Shimon, who were Mezaneh with Maya 49. Says Hagoyin Rav Moshe Shapiro. If these 24,000 students died during Sefira, you know why they died during Sefira? Because the 49 days of Sefira must be the designated 49 days a year to overcome the 49 koichos of klala that exist in Moav. And these 49 koichos of klala that exist in Moav killed 24,000 descendants of Shimon. And if these 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva were able to be masakin, and they didn't, then they will succumb during what time of the year? During the Yemei Sefira. The Yemei Sefira are the 49 days of the year that have the possibility to overcome the curse of Moav. And if we don't overcome the curse of Moav, then those who have the opportunity to be masakin will succumb during this time. This is one of the most tragic periods of the year throughout history. Not only students of Rabbi Akiva, All the crusades, first and second, occurred during the Yemei Sfira. We spoke about it last year. Why? Because these 49 days are the power of Moav that could be overcome. Now, this is Mamish Oyam and Oyam. If we're successful in overcoming Moav during this time of the year, when do you think Mashiach will be born? When we're done. On the 50th day of the Omer. Wow, what a coincidence. What day was David HaMelech born? On the Yom Chamishim, the 50th day, because David was the true Mashiach. The true Mashiach is able to be Machatz Pa'asei Moav, and by counting the Yemei Sfira, that means the job of Sfira is to overcome Klala, and to bring the world somehow into the state of Bracha, and to overcome the Klala of light and Moav. Is there any coincidence then that the pinnacle of the Yemei Sfira are Megillas Rus and the birth of David HaMelech? When it's all said and done, what we're aiming for, what we're yearning for, what we're counting toward is V'ayved holiest Yishai, V'yishai holiest David. That's the crescendo of the Yemei Sfira, the Leda of Mashiach ben David. If I could remind you of a Davar Nifla that we said over from the Imre Yosef of Spinka, it's Mamish Begeder Ruach HaKodesh. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin that Pinchas was standing there. By the way, the Ramami Pano says Rabbi Kiva was the Gilgal of Zimri himself. That Pinchas was standing there as Zimri is living with Cosby, who, by the way, Cosby came back as the Gilgal of Eishes Rabbi Kiva. And Pinchas didn't do anything at first. Not until Zimri tired out from living with Cosby. Says the Gemara, how many Be'ilos was Zimri Bayal Cosby? The Gemara says a Davar Nifla, 424 times, and then he tired out, and then Pinchas killed him. Manoimer Manada, what's that supposed to mean? 424. How's that possible? So the Imre Yosef brings down from Reb Chaim Vital that heaven forbid to read any episode in the Chumash simply that these great figures were debased, or lowly, or lewd. He says, Chas v'shalom was Zimri just a parutz, but they're dvarim amukim, but we don't know what they are. So the Imre Yosef says, in my humble opinion, I'll tell you what it was. The same way, we had a tradition that there was a spark of Mashiach that was laying dormant in Moav. And that's why Rus went to Boaz, B'chatzi Alayla, and Boaz recognized that this spark of Malchus David, lay dormant in Rus. Zimri, the Nasi, the Gadol B'Yisrael, he mistakenly detected, likewise, that this dormant spark lay in this woman, Cosby. And he was trying to bring Mashiach. And that's why the Gematria 424 is Mashiach ben David. Now don't try that at home. Mashiach ben David. You can't use Gematria, but says the Imre Yosef, this was the Kavanah of Zimri. So we see that there was some type of awareness that on the one hand, Bilam understood that through Moav it will inject the 49 koiches of Latusa and Klal Yisrael, and on the other hand, the Nasi B'Yisrael erred and somehow thought that he could overcome it and rise above the 49, 424, B'Gematria Mashiach ben David. Says Rabbi Moshe Shapiro, is there any coincidence then? What do we have to get out of the way before the Yom Tov of Shavuos? The Klalos. How many Klalos do we read in B'chukaisai? The 49 Klalos in B'chukaisai. There are 98 Klalos in Kisabai, but we lane 49 Klalos in B'chukaisai. Why do we lane it? Because the Avodah of the Yemei HaSfira is to somehow overcome the level of klala that Bilam was successful in placing in the world, in Klal Yisrael, in the Bnei Shimon, Umisham L'chol Yisrael, through the Znus of Moav, which emanated from light, and therefore before Shavuos begins, we say Tichla Shana Mekilai. So we have to read the 49 curses of the Teichacha. Says Hagan Moshe Shapiro, perhaps this explains the unique shita, the Machzor Vitri, and the Chayk Yaakov and the Ber Hetev. that when it comes to the mitzvah of Sefira, it's different than every other mitzvah. When it comes to the mitzvah of Sefira, the mitzvah is not just to count, but perhaps there's an idea that the bracha is part of the mitzvah. Why would the bracha be part of the mitzvah? So he says, Al Pi Machshava, where the avodah of Sefira is to overcome the 49 powers of Mayav, of Klala, that were injected into the world through the znus of the Bnei Shimon, which had an opportunity to be misaken through the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva. The avodah of Sefira is to overcome that klala. Therefore, the mitzvah is not just merely counting. The mitzvah is to bring bracha, to draw bracha. The Nefesh HaChaim writes, bracha is milashon brecha, a pool, to draw forth the shefa. So the avodah of Sefira is not just to count, but to juxtapose the counting to bracha. The bracha becomes part of the mitzvah to the extent that the Machzavitri paskins that even if you counted without a bracha, you could then count again with a bracha, because the bracha is not just a bracha mitzvah, the bracha is actually part of the kiyam mitzvah. And perhaps that's the explanation for those who are noig to say shehayoim yoim rishon la'omer, because again we're connecting the Sefira itself to the bracha. But ultimately, the avodah of counting during Sefira is to combat the churban. There's a churban of third Beis HaMikdash, which Rabbi Kiva and the Chachamim paskin that Bar Kochva was going to do it. So it wasn't just the death of the 24,000 students of Rabbi Kiva, but their death made it that Bar Kochva's plans were frustrated, and we didn't have a Beis HaMikdash, and we didn't have Malchus Beis David. But as we count the Yemei HaOmer, we are sort of counting toward that great conception and leda of Oived holiest Yishai, the Yishai holiest David. We should taka bizoicha through our kiyam hamitzvos of Sefira, that Hashem should be reckoned, kilo kiyam tia, b'chol pratea, v'diktukea, v'kamnaseh. We should be zoicha to the real geula, v'yaskoel tzedek. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.